Head on Fire is a Patreon-supported podcast. Supporters of the show get early access to ad-free episodes, a private Discord server, archives, and more. All benefits are offered on a sliding scale, so no matter your level of donation, you never miss out. If you like this show, consider supporting it with $1 a month or whatever you can at patreon.com/headonfirepod. Thanks, and enjoy the show. The first movie I ever saw in a movie theater was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which probably tells you a lot about me and why I am the way I am, the kind of stories I'm most drawn to. Because, I think the best stories are the ones that blend that childlike sense of wonder with grown-up lessons about how the world operates and why. There's this scene that I think about a lot. It's the scene where Roger and Eddie Valiant, one of the only other humans in the movie, are handcuffed together, and Eddie is trying to get them free, and he takes them back to his office, and he's trying all this stuff to try to get the handcuffs off, and he's got this saw, and he's trying to saw the handcuffs apart, and he asks Roger to give him a better angle so that he can get the saw in. And Roger just takes his hands out of the handcuffs. And it takes Eddie a second to realize that Roger has just freed himself. And when, hijinks ensue, and Eddie asks, why didn't you do that sooner? Roger said, oh, well, I could technically do it all along, but I could only do it when it was funny. I think about this scene a lot, especially as we've been renegotiating our relationship to comedy and comedians in recent years. Ever since the slap heard around the world at the Oscars in March of 2022, we've been asking ourselves whether calling yourself a comedian and getting on a stage gives you license to say whatever you want about whoever you want, as long as you call it comedy. Even then, this begs the question of whether what we are calling comedy is actually funny. What power all of this holds, and can you wield it as long as you're funny? So I decided to ask a comedian. Bonnie Klopfer is an actress and comedian whose videos have been loved by millions of people around the world. She's a stand-up regular in LA and makes content online about finding the funny in mundane things, including a breakout series of shorts about product packaging. Here's Bonnie Klopfer. Bonnie Klopfer, welcome to Head on Fire. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. You actually mispronounced my last name. It's... I'm sorry. I had to. It's Klopfer. You said it perfectly.
Really?
No, you said it perfectly.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was like, I said that. We practiced.
Sorry, I had to. It was right there.
For people that do not know you or your work, tell people who you are and what it is that you do.
Hi, thank you so much. So my name is Bonnie Klopfer. I'm online as Booby Clapper as a pseudonym. I am an internet and stand-up comedian and actor. Occasionally I do like a tech job when I need money, but aside from that, I'm very much a comedic and performance creative.
So thanks much for being here. I think that a lot of people are kind of curious about the behind the scenes of being a comedian, especially in the last few years as we are starting to kind of like renegotiate our relationship with comedy, with stand-up comedy, and all of that. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. First question, is comedy more like porn, or is it more like fine art in a museum? And what I mean by that is comedy something that's like, I don't know what comedy is, I just know it when I see it? Or is it more like art in which it's comedy if we say it's comedy, and it's not comedy if we decide it's not comedy?
I love this question.
Thank you so much.
I love the comparison as well. I would say it's like, well, I would argue this. I would say it's like art in a fine art museum, with the caveat that I could look at art in a fine art museum and make an argument to myself that it's not art if I really wanted to. But I do think that it's tricky. I want to say the intention behind comedy is kind of aids the definition. But there is some comedy that is just like, people will try to call it comedy and it's not. Just like I could try to call like this hair tie art. I don't think anybody intends for it to be art. But if I really wanted to, like if I needed somebody to believe that it was art to save my reputation, I could try to tell you it's art and try to pass it off as art for whatever reason. but you can clearly see it's not. So I think there's some comedy that's maybe isn't comedy. But no, I would say it's mostly like art, at least in terms of curation as well, and the effort that goes into making it and making it good and making it worth paying attention to.
I think that comedy, a lot of performance arts, uh, I like that you brought up the word intentionality there, because I think that the people who do it well, like you, make it
Oh,
look
thank you.
so easy that like, oh, anyone could do this. Oh, I just am funny. I could just sit down and do this. I could just sit down and write a poem and it's just like that. No, I can only write that because I've been doing this for 25 years. I can sit here and write a skit and I know it's going to be funny because I've been doing this for X number of years. So I appreciate that you talk about the intentionality of it. How do you know when something is funny?
Oh, that's also a great question. I sometimes don't, and I actually really like that you asked this question because there are a lot of things that I do and that I put on the internet that I it wouldn't make me laugh if I saw it. Like, I might find it I might find it cute or, like, "Oh, like, there's a talking point about product packaging," but, like, it wouldn't so I try to throw things into everything that I do that would make me laugh, but my actual sense of humor and the things that I find, like, laugh out loud funny and that I will have tears streaming out of my eyes about are things that are much more obscure and, like, I think wouldn't hit as well on the internet. So there's a bit of give and take. How do I know if something's gonna be funny? Sometimes I don't. Like, sometimes I'll put something on the internet and I'll be like, "I think that this is gonna be funny by most people's standards or by somebody's standards," and it won't do as well, or there'll be things that I think are, like, it's just like a throwaway, and I'm like, "I just need to" it's an idea, and I just wanna see if it sticks, and then it'll blow up, and I
I
haven't
hate that.
so I have no
I
idea.
hate
So
that. I hate that the algorithm will
God.
take something that I spent 3 hours writing and fretting over, that required costume changes, that required editing, and, I personally got a lot of yucks out of it, and then the internet's like, 7 people are going to see this. And
Yep.
something that, like, you just say to the camera just because 'cause you're just like, "Oh my god, it just I 3 million people." It's like, "Oh
Yeah.
god."
It's crazy. It's interesting too how and I kind of like it, and I kind of it works with you and against you sometimes, right? Because it's nice that, and I think it's probably mostly Gen Z driving it, and I say that with no data points and no real reason to believe that other than it just seems to make sense to me. I think that they kind of reward things that seem relatable and seem doable. So it's like if it is just somebody grabbing a camera and saying something that's funny off the cuff, that gets a lot of reward, and things that are less replicable and less easy to churn out sometimes do get hidden, like the elaborate sketches with costume changes and scripts and special effects, etc.
Yeah,
So it's
social
that's
media where Gen Z lives does not reward polish. It
correct.
rewards
It
raw,
rewards
dirty,
raw,
or at least the appearance of raw. They don't actually want raw and dirty. They want it to look
raw and
they want it
dirty.
to look spontaneous.
Well, and it's you can see it too with I've been seeing more and more sketches and skit, comedy groups that are including, like, very intentionally including bloopers from what they're doing, which it's an interesting psychology game too because I'll watch them and I'll laugh when they laugh, but it's because I'm like because it feels like you're laughing with somebody or it feels like you're there. Which is kind of cool, and that sometimes is, like, the kind of stuff that makes me laugh, but it's, like, an interesting psychological trick that I don't think anybody's doing on purpose, but it's just become a trend now to include the bloopers and leave off the polish.
I promise I am not going to make this entire interview about this, but it did
Please.
reference at the top that we are kind of having a renegotiation of the audience comedian relationship, and maybe the audience getting a little bit more discursive around what is and is not actually funny, just because you are a comedian and you have been given a literal platform on a literal stage to say things, does not necessarily mean that the things that you are saying are funny. I did see, and I meant to copy this so that I could credit this person, but I did not. So I'm so sorry. Somebody on Instagram though, in a comment said that the best a comedian can do is attempt comedy, and it is up to the audience to decide whether they've succeeded.
I would agree. Sorry, did you have more to add to that? I didn't mean
No,
to
I
cut you
I
off.
I, I
I like
didn't.
that. I really like that, and it brings up a couple, I don't know, different things to keep in mind, but I think that that's quite true. And I kind of like a lot of comedians will complain, or I hear people getting annoyed, like, "Oh, we can't joke about whatever anymore, blah 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 blah," and complaining about the landscape changing. And to me, I'm like, can you just play the game? Like, if the rules change, if you can't say what you were gonna say, but okay, that's part of the challenge. Like, it's not supposed to be easy. It was never supposed to be easy for anybody. So I get a little bit, and I say this and like probably, you know what I mean, watch me like do something stupid and then, but whatever, I'll fall on the sword. If the rules change and if the game changes, you can't complain about it. Like, you can't force comedy to be what you wanted it to be or what it was 40 years ago, where you could make the same jokes that you could. Part of the challenge is navigating the landscape, and it's, if it's easy, then it's not fun. I don't get people getting their feathers ruffled about, comedians specifically getting their feathers ruffled about, like, trying to keep it the way it's always been, or trying to be able to joke about things that you can't joke about now. Sorry, find a different joke. There's so much material all over the place, and
It's
there's so many
so
different kinds
funny
of
to
humor.
me how there are certain comedians who seem like, I don't know, they grew up watching, you can usually guess which comedians they grew up watching. And it's like, instead of using that inspiration as a springboard to challenge themselves to say, okay, they said this at this time about this, and it hit because of X, Y, and Z reason. What could I say now that is
Right.
equally as fresh and revolutionary and new and next and reflective of society that would, maybe some little kid 20 years from now might be going, oh my gosh, I want to grow up to be that person. Instead, some of these people grew up watching these comedians and saying, I can't wait till it's my turn to tell those jokes.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, it was never going to be the same as it. Nothing is ever the same 20 years
Yeah.
down the road as it is. Nothing is static. Nothing is going to stay the same. And I say this too as somebody who, like, I'll get, somewhat defensive sometimes in my comments if people don't get the joke, or if they think that I'm like punching the opposite direction that I'm punching. I have to be like, no, like, I'm not, but I have to do it in like at least in my brain, I have to do it in a somewhat like funny, or, sarcastic or snarky way, just to, keep my area funny, but
Mhm.
also correct if somebody takes it. Cause I don't want some of my things, I don't want people to take the wrong way, or like extract the wrong message from it. But indeed, I think the best a comedian could do is attempt to be funny, and it's up to the audience, because you can't tell somebody that your joke is funny. I can't say something and you don't laugh and maybe like, "No, that was funny. Please laugh." No, you have to laugh, or else you're attacking me, actually. Actually, I'm hurting from you not like, no. And nobody you're never entitled to laughs just because you say that you're saying a joke. So I would agree with that. And I do, to be fair, like, I also do think that there are some landscapes within comedy that have gotten, or some, I guess, some corners of the internet that have gotten to the point where things get misconstrued, like, in my mind, in a way that it's hard for me to understand, like, what part of the internet you're coming from, that you're coming onto some video and misconstruing it that hard. But I don't know where you're coming from. I had somebody on a video today, on my, like, childbirth video, comment about how it was like creationism. What was it? He was like, it was creationism giving misogyny or something like that, and I was like, "It's literally what?" Like, because the caption said, "Whoever created childbirth was a porn addict," as, like, a tongue in cheek like, a tongue in cheek to people who are, like, chronically online or whatever, to that commentary, and this person thought
To
that I was
be
being serious.
fair, depending on which culture and which mythos you're in, you're not wrong. Like, there is factual basis.
That's
Like,
actually
I mean,
quite I didn't think about
if
that.
we're talking about Zeus creating humanity, you are not wrong.
That's actually quite I didn't even think about it that way in my brain, 'cause I just immediately was like, "That's not even what I'm saying." But truthfully, there are a lot of theisms
There are
where
some
it
very
is like
horny creators and creatrixes out there.
that's so true. Yeah, I didn't
Thank
even
you.
think
I
about it
can't
that
wait
way.
to see you use that as a rebuttal and pretend like you thought of that in your comment section here
I'm
in
gonna
45 minutes.
I'm gonna go quote by Head on Fire Pod, and then you're gonna get all the mean comments. You're gonna get people being like, "What did you say?" Share the love, Don.
It's so interesting though because there is I am very sympathetic because I also create stuff to put out there, and you think you're talking to one audience, and then something you say or some new fun game that the algorithm is playing with itself today will just decide your video is going to get shown to a wholly different audience than your normal videos do, just for funsies to see what would happen.
Just to
And then
fuck with you.
suddenly, and I think like there was it's not that you can't tell certain jokes anymore necessarily. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there used to be a time when you got more of an opportunity to opt in to certain kinds of humor. So like I grew up like like a lot of gay millennials with a lot of self-loathing and a love for sassy lady comics. Like I grew up watching like Lisa Lampanelli
Oh, love.
and Margaret Cho and like that crowd of like just insults and dirty just filthy nasty offensive
Yes.
stuff. And like but like you opt in.
Yeah.
Like you none of those people are selling themselves as like Ellen DeGeneres, who in her
Right.
heyday was known as like more, I mean, you know, she
Her
had
whole
jokes
thing was
about
like
pickle juice, like relatable and quirky and that kind of thing, you know?
yeah, and her whole thing was supposed to be, like, not making fun of anybody ever and
Right.
just, like, making jokes about other stuff. Yeah.
Right. And that works. And there's comics that do that. You know, Seinfeld was famous for hit, you know, it's a comedy about nothing, which, you know, it really was.
It truly
Really going back and watching some of those sets, I was like,
Oh my
you got
god.
so lucky that
It's true,
you
but I mean,
met
like
other funnier people.
that's so funny. But it's I mean, I think in comedy, it's that has to be the case for, I don't know, almost I'm sure that you can find terrible, and, like, super unfunny sets for any, like,
Sure.
big comic, right? And some of them there are some really funny people. I know some really in person, super funny, witty people who do stand up and are so bad at it. And
Yeah.
like they just doesn't like they just can't write or deliver or
Yeah.
like whatever the stage presence is off, but they're so funny. And like
Yeah.
they I think they could contribute amazingly to comedy, but just it's not their forte, at least right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure anybody can grow into something great in whatever field they
Sure.
want. But
It's a lot of like many performance. It's a skill set. Could you learn it? Sure. Why would you want to learn it if it's torture? I don't know. But like
true.
you also have to really want to. Like I'm a performer and there's a lot of things that I'll get up on stage and perform. I will 100%. I don't mind getting up on stage and doing funny poetry or doing funny, you know, off the cuff stuff. But like a type 5, a type 15, I don't have that in me. Like I need that participation. I need like I don't have that.
That's so fast because you know what's interesting about that is that you going into this coffee shop and like sitting down just writing this poem about your grandma. Was it your grandma or your great aunt? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it was my grandmother.
Grandmother, okay. That very much reminded me of like writing comedy where you just go sit
Sure.
down and it just spits out. And you need like the back and forth, but the response from the audience is just the laughter. So like that in and of itself is kind of its own retort and then you just keep going. So I
Yeah,
get
I
what you're
think
saying, but
my attempts at humor are best in when I try to when I'm using it to kind of like break the mood of something tense that I'm explaining or something like that. Like
I get that.
my last book, we had this like real long chapter on just like really deep, just some deep dive social cultural issues. Like it was just there just wasn't a lot of room to breathe, and I literally had on the page. I was like, okay, this has been a lot and there's still a lot more to go on this topic, but for right now we are going to make some dad jokes. And just I just wrote some horrible dad jokes on the page. My
Oh
editor
my god,
did
I
make me
love
take
that.
those out. She was like, we can't do this, but I did get away. Like I wrote an
Aw.
entire chapter from the framework of Legally Blonde. Like I do try very hard to let the reader enjoy themselves. But I can't. Yeah, I don't have a type 5. I don't, I don't have a, I don't have a type anything. Wait, that's whoa.
I was
No,
gonna say, Don, you're giving a lot away. I didn't know it was that kind of podcast.
begging the internet to be very chill about that.
Wait, I did have a really quick question about the internet being
Yes.
chill and etc. content. How vulgar? Guys, I have a potty mouth, and I don't know that I've said anything
Oh,
crazy.
here? Oh, it's fine.
Yes.
It's fine.
What about how fine? Because I'm like a big.
I'm
I
fine.
say cunt so much, and
Okay.
cunty. Is that okay? I
For
can leave it
me,
out.
yes.
Sure. Okay.
I'm a homosexual. It is
Well,
what I
sure.
serve.
I have had men tell me that I was wrong for saying cunt and cunty, and I was like, I think that
I
that's
am
not.
not going to police a woman using that
Wow.
language.
Thank you so much. I use it. Listen, I'm reclaiming cunt, I think,
You and
personally.
every Australian. Wow, look at you just running after the skirt tails of the average 12-year-old Australian. So brave.
The shrimp
So
on the
brave.
barbie.
What the? Why is that
I
the
can't do
only
an
thing you can
Australian.
say? You didn't even go for the
I can't say,
H2O, like, oh
I sure,
no,
or
oh
no.
no.
I can do, do you know Brian Jordan Alvarez? He does a great Australian, he's an American. He does a great Australian accent, and he's always saying lifting heaps of kilos.
I did not.
Sorry.
I don't even know who that
Such
is.
completely irrelevant.
So a lot of people have this misconception that you just kind of like are funny and that like you can just get on the stage. Like we've all seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, where you're just having that night where you just you know how sometimes you just drunkenly stumble into a comedy bar from the rain and they just give you the mic and let you talk
Right.
for 15 minutes and it's a
Right.
legendary, hilarious set,
Standard.
as
Yeah,
you
it
do.
happens to
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Is that how it always happens? Or is there work that goes into comedy and figuring out what's funny?
Allegedly there's work. Ostensibly there's work. No, there's a lot of work.
Talking about my $12 words ostensibly. I salute you. That's one of
I
my
fucking love that.
favorites.
Same, also one of my favorites. $12 words. I will say I've had like a pretty I don't have wood. I've had a pretty like marvelous Mrs. Maisel run so far in that I put in a lot of work and I have written comedy since forever. And I've written like stand up for forever and I've always just like bounced it off of people. But I haven't done stand up for very long and I'm not even going to say how not very long it's been. And I really did walk into a comedy club for my first mic. I walked into it was like a comedy school and I was just there to observe and they forced me to get up. Not well, they did force me. The woman who ran it forced me and was like, "No, you." She's like, "Next up is Bonnie Klopfer," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm just here to observe." And she was like, "No, if you're a woman, you have to get up and at least say hi." And I was like, "Okay." So I got up and I said hi, and I did like don't
What
ask
does
me. I think
what does woman have do with stage? What?
because every woman has to speak now. That's I think because she was a female. I
Wait, so
genuinely
if I walked in, I would not have to speak. I could just chill.
I no, I bet she would have just said every gay man has to speak. Like I'm sure that she would have come up with something.
Okay,
But
gotcha. Okay, so it was
I think
every invitation. She was just okay.
but it was directed at me and that was all she knew of me or at least could surmise.
And you didn't just like whip back. Did you just assume my gender?
I should have. I should have been like, "Excuse me." But it was a room full of comedians. I think I would have
27. I
gotten
mean, you're a millennial Gen Z cusp. I think you could have gotten away with that. I think you could have like put on your fuzzy earmuffs and just been like, "Did you just assume my gender?"
Did you just assume my gender? I'm tucking. I think that so anyway, I ended up going up. It was very they probably would have crucified me if I had done that. But I went up and I did just like kind of riff for just like a very short time, like a minute and a half or something. And I think that they all
Was
at
it
first just
a
thought
was it a tight minute and a half?
it was pretty tight.
Was it
It
was it
was
tight?
actually I wasn't planning on it, but it was like a pretty tight minute and a half.
Mm.
It was kind of packed.
Can I ask, because I keep saying this word and I don't know what it means. What does it mean for a set to be tight?
I love that you've used it several times, but honestly,
I
nobody
don't
knows.
actually know what that means in the context of comedy. I just assume that there's like no air. Like it's just joke, 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 joke.
Nobody knows for sure what tight means, but it is we do think experts
That's
believe
actually going to be the title of this episode. What is the definition of tight? With
of
Bonnie
our tight.
Klopfer.
Wait, can you please make that the title? That's what is the definition of because you also said you have nothing that's tight, which is a great soundbite. That's so funny. No, truly. Experts believe that a tight five is kind of what you described. Not no air, because you have to have room for laughs,
Sure, you have to have like laugh,
but it is
room,
like
hold for laugh.
a whole roll up. But it is like a 5 minute set that you can, and depending on whether or not you like to do crowd work at the front end, when I do like to do a little bit, it'll be some of my type fives are like 3.5s, and I do like a minute and a half of crowd work, and then I launch into this like 3.5. And usually,
Feels like cheating.
doesn't it? It kind of is.
See, I think I could do crowd work. I mean, because I can vamp. I can run a crowd. I've done that many times. I can vamp with a crowd. I don't know that I could just be funny, like professionally funny. I don't think I have
Well,
that in me.
Don, would you believe that a lot of professional comedians can only do crowd work and turns out aren't professionally funny? Not naming names.
I did find out that I found out that some comedians are rife with a lack of a well-rounded
Oh, bless him. I do listen.
toolkit.
I
I've been trying
feel
so hard not to say his name just because I'm like,
I
I don't
know.
want it to be like Don and
I know.
Bonnie talk shit about Matt Rife for an hour.
Well, and listen, because I as a comedian, I as a comedian, he is one of ours, right? And I feel for him in the sense that I haven't watched many of his other stand-up specials. I don't feel for him for getting canceled because that is just like the risk that you run, particularly whenever you're saying the jokes that you're saying in 2023. That's a risk that you run. And he's well aware of that. He knows that. I'm sure that he knew that
I think he
that
ran head first into that. I think he
I think
wanted
he did.
this. I
I
think he
I
wanted every bit of this.
potentially, and it might be great for his like publicity. Who knows? But I do feel for him in the sense that like I was saying with comedians who I know who are so bad at actually like writing and telling jokes. And
Mhm.
maybe they're not always bad because I've seen comedians bomb night after night after night after night and then have one night that they're like the best on the lineup.
Mhm.
And everybody loves them and they're everyone's sweetheart and because
Is
they
it that
just
they're
get
only the
going.
best on the lineup contextually and that just other people were even worse than them?
No, no, do you know what's crazy? I love the way you think, because it's sadistic and, terrible, but I've seen somebody who truly, like and it's been in the same lineup as me, where night after night, we're just, like, bad the same lineup as me, so, like, they had a huge barrier to get over. It's like big shoes to fill. No, but, like, night after night, bombing, bombing. I did not think this guy was funny at all, and then
Uh-huh.
I watched him one night just, like, shine, and he was the funniest person I'd ever seen in my entire life, and I was like, "What the how the" and it was just the energy of the crowd that was different, but I feel for comics who their whole thing is crowd work because that it's I mean, it's such an easy for a lot of people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's like a very easy get. Like it's, to riff off of people. It's just unpredictable. So you can't recreate it every night.
Sure.
And so, but you get a lot of content that way because it's always
Yeah.
different.
And that spontaneity can really breed, some just really creative avenues for stuff that you just wouldn't
Correct.
otherwise come with. I mean, writing a novel, any kind of creative thing, that sense of play is very integral to
Yes.
evolution, to who you're going to be next year as a writer, who you're going to be next year as a comic. Like
100%.
the arts are fluid. They are always changing. They are always progressing. It's not about what you've done. It's about what you're going to do, what you could do next. What is the next realm of jokes? What new area of comedy could we mine?
Correct. And so you have to be funny to do the crowd work. Like you can't
Mhm.
do crowd work without being witty and funny. And Matt Rife has, in my mind, I you might have a different opinion than I do. In my mind, he's had some really good crowd work. Like I really enjoyed
I
a lot of his crowd
agree.
work.
I very much
And
agree.
but I think it was people were expecting that same level of like wit and cleverness and quickness with his like actually written set that it just was not, it didn't line up. Like, it was like you were watching a different comedian completely, where his crowd work is
Well,
so
and I
quick and the
think that comes from, so you know this. Anybody who is in any kind of creative field is a mimic first. And but before you can find your own voice, you have to be a very bad mimic and then a very good mimic. We were talking before the show, but I got my start writing by mimicking the style of World War II, like very staid, weird Wilfred Owen World War II soldier poetry. And then I wrote a lot of beatnik poetry. Like, I was a very bad mimic at like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old of some stuff that I should probably not have been reading. Definitely should had no perspective, absolutely no right to be writing. But like, you're a terrible mimic, and then you become a good mimic, and then you figure out why this works, and then you kind of like, because you're like, oh wait, I've been doing this. Like, what if I did it this other way instead? And then that's really bad. But then you have to figure out why it's really bad. And the figuring out
right.
of the why is how you become good. And I feel like the reason why that special was bad is because he's been able to get away so much with this other thing that he's still only just a decent mimic of the people that he so clearly idolizes in the rest of his toolkit. And the people that he
Yeah.
so clearly idolizes are folks who are wildly problematic, but are so rich and so entrenched in comic culture that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the only thing that I would adjust about the language there, I guess, is, and this is, and you and I might be different people in this sense. I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm a very, like, I have a lot of, I don't know. I think I look for the best possible and like most happy outcome or scenario, I guess, for people. And so I think it's less that he's gotten away with just doing crowd work, and more that he like maybe just got famous doing crowd work as a happenstance,
Yeah,
and then all these people who have been following him because of his crowd work. And again, people like, it's like a completely different art form, crowd work versus written comedy, at least in my mind. Some crowd work is written. Like, a lot of my crowd work that I've done is just like bits that I have in my brain that
sure.
just
Yeah.
comes
It's
spilling out.
it's
But
bits that can't make a full they can't
yeah,
make like a
it's
full joke, but it's you've got it when you
yes.
need it.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's bits that, or like, yeah, just haven't made their way into anything else. And so I think that he got very famous doing crowd work because his crowd work is really, really clever and very quick. And then he did this special doing written comedy. And I don't know that there's, I wish for him that he would have just done like a crowd work special, but I don't think that that's a thing.
I do
But
too.
it is
Mateo
like,
Lane does it. I just did this whole thing
he
about how
does. I
I
love
think
Mateo.
Mateo Lane is doing everything that everybody thinks that Matt Rife is doing, but better. But I mean,
I
Mateo
saw
Lane
that.
has done like 2 crowd work specials.
I do
Like,
love Mateo Lane. So that's, and that's true. I just wish that there was less, because there is kind of like this whole thing in comedy of there's so much like pettiness and this hierarchy of
yeah,
professionalism, where it's like, to do written stand up and to like perform a written set is is pure comedy, and then there's crowd work, and then there's internet comedy and whatever. And I'm like, can you just, in my brain I'm like, can you just let the landscapes be whatever they are? Crowd work is just as funny, sometimes funnier than written comedy. You have to be quick and witty for it, you have to be funny for it. Internet comedy is just a different ball game altogether. But there is this kind of like dick swinging contest, I feel like, within comedy about doing just a set versus doing crowd work. And people call comedians who do crowd work not comedians. And I don't do that much crowd work. I try to go for like the pure comedy thing. But I still think people who do crowd work are comedians
but
and are
I think
making
I
more
mean
money than I'm doing.
that also makes its way into the theater as well. I mean, comic actors are not seen as having the
Mm,
same gravitas, the same skill set, the same merit as dramatic actors. I mean,
it's true.
every year, every award season, it's a bunch of sad movies about sad people who died very sadly doing saddiness. And it's all just so sad. And all the, oh, look at all the best actresses' performance. And it's all, we died in 9 different terrible house fires. And we
Jesus
all,
Christ.
they're all so sad. All of them are
So
sad.
sad.
And I love all of them and I will watch all of them, but I am dying for comedy to get its due because
Have its
the
own.
crazy thing is that, I mean, I grew up in theater. I didn't end up becoming an actor, but I did grow up in theater. And when you talk to actors, especially people who are like much more successful doing dramatic work, they will tell you that comedy is harder.
I think it depends on the person, because for me,
True.
I'm bad at dramatic acting. My face moves too much to do dramatic acting. The amount of control that I have to put over my face, like, I've done dramatic movies, or,
I know
like,
I've
shows or
seen
whatever. Yeah.
making
But
out in that elevator, just making
oh,
out,
stop. That one was so, but
just
it was bad.
making out in that elevator. Josephine, listen.
That's so funny that you, like, looked at I know that you looked at my IMDb now.
Oh,
Well,
fully.
I already knew because we talked about
Yeah,
that,
of course.
but I always get the note when I'm doing dramatic acting. I always get the note of, like, "Can you calm the face down? Less face." It's less face, please. Can we bring that down?" And every time I'm
Yeah.
like, that's how I actually look when I cry. When I cry, you can ask my roommate. I actually go like full frown, like when I'm actually sad and heartbroken, I'm going,
See, now I just want to give you an extra present on Christmas morning. Like, I just feel like, oh,
that's probably where it came from.
it's very Dickensian orphan of you.
But I think it is. I think I don't know the hierarchy and like the judgment that happens between these different creative fields and within comedy. I think that that might be why Matt Rife felt like he needed to prove himself doing written comedy, and like he still can. He can get much better at it. It's, I think, a shame for him that that special came out at like the peak of his fame currently, and that it isn't under like a, I think, just a less developed, or it's just that it didn't hit the right audience, because the audience that loves his crowd work, it's a different sense of humor from his written comedy. His written comedy is very like what I would refer to as like Xbox teenage boy comedy, where it's what you would hear your brother on Call
Yeah,
of Duty saying to his friends in the headset, which is funny for some, but it's not the
that's
same as
true.
like,
It makes some people some money.
and it
But
makes
I
people
always
some
think,
money.
like, I was gonna ask, but I mean, I don't
Go
want to
on.
ask a leading question. I don't think that there is necessarily any topic that is off limits to be funny. I just think you have to be able to be funny telling it. And the person that I always think of when I think of that is Tig Notaro and her like legendary set whenever
Yes.
she just found out that she had cancer. Like just got the diagnosis and then went to go do a set. And I remember hearing that on the Moth Hour like years and years and years ago. And it is, I mean, that's Marvelous Mrs. Maisel moment. That is walking in, disoriented, let me get my bearings. And that is somebody who is in it, who is speaking a lived experience, who is having a moment of honesty, but is so fucking funny.
Yes.
And is
I
inviting
yes.
inviting you to laugh with them. And I always think that that's the difference between good comedy about serious subjects and bad comedy about serious subjects. It's being invited in to laugh with me, then I'm going to be edgy for edginess'
Just
sake,
for the sake of being edgy. I
just
would
for the sake of
100%
saying
agree.
edgy shit that's going to get passed around on on Reddit or 4chan or whatever the hell it goes now.
The spoken like a true millennial.
I have literally, I don't even have a Reddit account because I'm terrified of it.
I thought that you were
Those,
like in your I well, whenever I first stumbled across you on TikTok, I thought that you were like late 20s. I have no idea how old you
bless
are.
you. Thank you
You're
so
moisturizing or
much.
some shit. I still don't know
I
how
am
old you are.
37 years old.
Are you actually? No fucking shit. Oh my, you look
1986, babe.
barely legal. Wow.
Bless
Amazing.
you. Thank you
That's
so much. In fact, that
oh, thank
is
you.
just going to be the title of this episode, Barely Legal with Bonnie
Barely
Klopfer.
legal. Barely legal. What is
Klopfer.
the definition of tight? But I appreciate your leading question, because as I was when you're going through your day and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna be on Don Martin's podcast," I was thinking about specifically Matt Rife. And I was thinking, my genuine take is there's nothing that's off the table in terms of
I
like
don't think there's anything off the table. I really
there's
don't.
nothing off the table. There's not a single thing off the table, but it is the perspective from which you tell it, the way you tell it. I guess it's the perspective from which you tell it and the perspective that the audience has of you when you tell it. And those
Sure.
have to be correct for you to be invited in. Or there are a lot of comics who do like, because I do like offensive comedy. I
Yeah.
like I like comics who be people don't like, but they do these things kind of from a place of almost being like a trope of somebody who is like a redneck or whatever. Not Larry the Cable Guy or whoever the hell it is who actually is the trope. And there but people who are like quite liberal or whatever, but
Oh,
do these tropes.
well, God, I hate to keep going back to the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but there's an excellent example of that in Jane Lynch's character from that show, who plays that like large, matronly, hick lady. And then in reality,
Yes.
she's this upscale, rich, lithe, tall, skinny lady.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like the difference of, and you play to what you can only play to like what you can play to and what you look like or what, because in my brain I'm thinking of, and this is maybe a touchy subject, Shane Gillis looks like, I think he's from Pennsylvania. Shane Gillis, if you look him up, you're going to find all kinds of, he's been canceled. He's said some really bad things in the past. I think, I don't know exactly what he said. But I just know that he was at some point, are you looking him up right now?
I am.
He's the one who got cast on SNL and immediately got fired because they found like old tweets or something. He's this one.
Oh, God,
And
imagine that's what people say. But, oh, that's Shane Gillis.
the
And then the
one who
only other thing that you have to say about him is he was cast on SNL and then was immediately fired.
so bad. But listen, okay, he and he's a controversial take. I really like a lot of the comedy he does because I feel like I get him in the sense of like he looks so redneck and so is redneck. I don't know if redneck's offensive. He looks so like conservative, and he comments on that. He's like, I know I look like a conservative. I'm not. I know that I look like it. And the jokes that he makes are like, some of them are just the way it reads to me, at least. It's poking fun at people who have these viewpoints. Like he talks about how America is the only country with the gun problem, like the only country with the gun problem, and we won't do anything. We refuse to do anything about it because what are we going to do? Give our guns like a bunch of gay guys? And it's like he's making fun of the fact that like that is the actual opinion that people have is like, oh, what are we going to do? Like be pussies? Like like that's what's stopping us from saving children's lives is that we're like afraid to look gay. That's so he plays on that in a way that I think is quite
See,
smart and
now
like
I want to do a commentary where I come out in like some Daisy Dukes, like just shirtless, oiled up Daisy Dukes and just guns. I'm
please.
not a guns person. I don't own guns, but I
Neither.
just want to be like, bitch, what?
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 But do you get what I mean? Like it's and I think people sometimes take his and maybe other people's, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a Shane Gillis apologist, but the way that he does it, he's just making fun of people who have this mentality of like, oh, we can't save children's lives because we want to keep our guns because they make us manly. And but I also do think that probably part of his audience is people who don't realize that that's the joke and are just like, yeah, we're not going to give up our guns. Like, you know,
Well, it's like
beauty's in the eye of
we
the
kind of
beholder.
said at the beginning. A comedian can only ever attempt comedy. It is up to the audience to decide if they
So
were
true.
successful. In another way of saying that, whenever I'm coaching or whenever I'm giving advice to like younger poets, a lot of people talk about like, is it a good poem? Is it a bad poem? Is this person a bad poet? Yada yada yada. And I'm like, that's the wrong way to think about it. I don't think there's
Mm.
such a thing as good poetry and bad poetry. I think that there is successful poetry and unsuccessful poetry, and there's three criteria for that. Is does the poet know why they wrote the poem? Does the poet know what the hell they're doing? Does the reader know why they wrote the poem? Like, is it clear to the reader what this poem is about, or is this just words on paper? And is it doing something? Is there a conversation happening between the poet and the reader happening on the page? Like, is the person feeling literally anything? It doesn't matter if it's just like a gentle chuckle or a deep sigh, like literally anything. Is it doing anything at all? Or is this just words on paper? So if the poet knows why they wrote it, if there's intentionality to it, like you were talking in the beginning, if there's intentionality to it, if which I know that like Instagram really loves those like really short poems that are like a sentence, like Rupi Kaur got
Oh,
really
yes.
famous for like, I love the mayonnaise that you left on the shelf. Rupi Kaur, like, so
It still smells like you.
you
With the little
smell like
dash.
old mayonnaise that has been left on a shelf. Rupi Kaur.
Italics.
But I know that like Instagram is really rife with those. But I do think that there needs to be a level of intentionality here. Did you choose these words? Did you choose this specifically, or was this just like a bumper sticker that you saw somewhere? So, like, was there intentionality to it? Is it doing something for the reader? And is there a conversation happening here? Saying literally anything. Is there something happening? And I think I think you're saying the same thing with comedy. I think you're saying the same thing with really any performance. Does the person know why they're telling this joke? Like, is there an intentionality to crafting this? Is the audience receiving it as a joke? Is the audience understanding the humor that you intended? And is it doing anything? Or in the comedian's realm, am I laughing?
Yeah,
Am I
that's a really
laughing?
good I love that framework. I'm gonna start you because I think
Thank
that
you
that's probably a
so
really fair.
much.
Did
Thank
you come up with that or
you.
did you read that somewhere?
No, I did. I came up with
That's
that. It's a
fucking
video that I made like a year ago.
that's beautiful. I love that so much. I'm gonna use that for my because that's actually quite good. That would because if I think about comedy that I
Thanks. Jerry
don't
Saltz
find
said that he was going to steal that.
well, I'm gonna steal it too now. Race to steal it first, Jerry Salt.
Between you and
Okay.
Pulitzer Prize winning art critic Jerry Saltz.
The one thing that we have in common.
To steal Don's bit.
Don stealing Don's bit. Making money off of something Don said.
Yes, fine. Other people did it.
Ah! Oops. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Wow. But no,
yeah.
that's
No,
great.
but I think that that's a good. I think that that's a good framework for discussing comedy. Does the comic know? Does the comic know why they're telling this joke? And that's the problem. I think sometimes with where some of these comedians get in hot water, which is what we were talking about, is that people are just mimics. They don't understand why that was funny. They don't understand why that person could tell that joke, and they think that
Right.
well, it's like those white folks who are like, why do you get to say the N word and I don't?
Yeah, and it's like, well, if you do it, like, just Google it. How about just
Or
Google
the
it?
story, or to just talk about my own lived experience. Some like white girl in a gay bar calling me a gay F word, and then when I'm like, you don't get no, ma'am, and she's like, well, why do you get to say it? I'm like, first, no, absolutely not. That is not the right. You do not get
Oh
to
my
ask.
god.
No, if
That's
I'm called it,
so
I get to say whatever the.
but that is exactly but, like, that's literally exactly the thing is that people don't you have to understand and there are, like, a handful of, guidelines for comedy, and one of them is, like, don't punch down, and I think that's where comedians get in so much trouble is that whatever they're saying, even if they don't mean to be punching down, you have to think about how it's gonna be received, and if it looks like you're punching down, adjust it. Unless you are okay with people getting really upset, because you can, I'm not telling anybody I'm a big just warn people about let people know the consequences and then let them do what they're gonna do. You can't control people, but you can let them know the consequence. Just like
Yeah,
people can't control people's reactions to comedy. You can't tell people to not be offended, but the you can portray your intention. Maybe I had somebody try to tell me in one of my comment sections, they were like, "I don't think that you get to tell me that what you were doing was a joke." And I was like, "Well, I can tell you that it was, but you don't have to believe me. Like, I don't know what to tell you."
there you go. I mean, I meant it as a joke. If you didn't find it funny, then I guess it wasn't successful.
I
So,
guess it wasn't a successful joke for you. Yeah.
uh oh,
Okay.
uh
Damn. All right.
guess
Probably.
I'm gonna go try to write another one. I guess
Guess. Well, yeah. Or
that's how
people
this
commenting.
works.
So like people comment. I think people don't realize understand the algorithm either. This is also nearly apropos of nothing, but like people commenting on videos that they don't like to say how much they don't like them. I'm
I
like,
don't
you're gonna
understand
get
that,
more
and
of
I wish
me.
people would
I'm
stop
gonna
doing it. You know what else I
I'm gonna
hate when
keep
people
showing
do?
up. Hmm.
Is they'll see, like, I don't know, and I hate how much our social media feeds and just pop culture in general is so centered on, I don't know, celebrity gossip, but I get that it's like, I don't know, I get that we have to have something to talk about. I don't know.
People
Anyways,
need
I have a
something to do with their
weird,
time. Yeah.
yeah, but like Wh- they see something. I don't know. Jacob Elordi might be bi, and then somebody like 74 people underneath have to just be like let everybody know. I don't even know who
Yeah, and it's like,
who is that?
who are you commenting for? Like, what are
I
you
don't
who is
like. What is
the
that? Do you think
the
that's anything? Do you think
like, is that
that's like you're not like you're
and you're
not
also
special because you don't know who he is? Like, what is that supposed to be? Are you just telling us how cool you are? Oh, I'm just so cool. I know
yeah,
actors you would never have heard of. Like I
I
don't think
don't
that's a flex.
understand. So much of the shit that people will comment on stuff, I, like, don't I'm sure it comes from somewhere. It has to. But I don't understand where that place is so much of the time. I'm like, why would you yeah, it's and with comedy and well, you put out so much content. Like you said before, sometimes it just gets shuffled to the wrong audience or like
Yeah.
people who are going to take it, they're just not it's not their they did not opt in. And so you feel bad for them too. But
Yeah,
like
I one time I talked about the white supremacy that exists in certain niche spiritual communities, and I ended up on like some Russian TV host found that somehow,
stop.
and it got like 50 I got like it went out to like 54,000 like 54,000 comments or whatever of just like,
Fuck.
yeah, it was insane. It was nuts. It was the first
Wait,
I think it was the
I
first
wanna
time I've
find this
ever like
one.
deleted comment. It was an old tweet. It was
Oh,
it was a video on TikTok that got reposted to Twitter, and then it was on Twitter that it found the bad place. And I was like,
oh my
"Oh
god.
no." Like, yeah, I don't know.
That's fucking
It
scary.
I know. I'm like, "Wait, who are
What I
you
gotta
all
check.
and how did you find like what is any of this?"
It is crazy because people aren't like they're not conscious of that either, being like, maybe I'm taking this out of context, or maybe this is like a different side of the internet than the one that I wanted to be on. And then they comment, and then they're gonna get more. They're just gonna see more Don
Yeah.
Martin. You comment on my video, you're gonna see more of my fucking mouth all over your page. If you want to tell me that I'm not funny, great. I'm about to show up all over your For You page.
Can I speaking of not being funny, what's it like to
Mm.
bomb?
Oh my god, the best feeling in the world.
I knew you'd love it. You're twisted. I love it.
It's such an interesting experience to bomb. Luckily, I've never ever done it in my life because I'm so
I
funny and
walked on
perfect
stage for the first time and killed.
and killed. No, the worst. So my worst bomb ever. It was so like I sometimes still cringe about it, but it was. Oh no, I had two. I guess the second wasn't a bomb. I was just like on the verge of being blacked out drunk in London, and I was at like this
As you are. Yeah.
pretty decent sized comedy club, and they were doing I had sent him an email, like the guy who runs it. I was just in London for a few days. I sent him an email. I was like, "Hey, I'm a comedian. I'm based in LA. I'm in London right now. I'd love to come do a set. Like, if you have an opening, whatever." And he responded. He was like, "Yeah, of course. Like, we can put you in the early show, and then depending on how you do, you can come join us for the later show." And so I went to the early show, and I think just
Is
because I
that
was
your
in a
London?
it's my something. I don't know what it is.
Is
I
that your
kind of blend it all
London?
together.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm gonna
It's
I'm gonna enjoy
it's
that.
it's something. I date only foreigners, so I pick up a lot of accents. And there were so many things that we have that we're not going to cover today. But anyway, I went to this thing and my first set, I just kind of like did new material about being in London, and they liked it. It wasn't a tight five though. It should have been like it wasn't, and they called me their headliner because I was new and from LA. And so then he invited me to do the later show, and I show up to the later show, and it's like the most impressive professional drag queens, hula hoopers, like cabaret singers, amazing variety show, some of the most talented people I've ever been in the same room as. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do a set. Like, I'm not doing this. And I told him I wasn't going to do it. And he's like, okay, like, that's fine. And then after a few drinks, because I usually don't drink before I do stand up, but I love to drink. And so after a few drinks, he was like, I literally had my glass of wine sitting right there for whenever, I, I was like, we're going to run up to 5. Anyway, I had a few drinks and he came over and he was like, does anybody know how to sing? And me, I was 3 sheets to the wind. And I was like, yeah, I can sing. Why? And I can't. Like, I can't though. Not impressively. And he was like, well, I had a singer that was gonna come and close out the show, but she didn't show up. Could you do a number? And I was like, yes, any Amy Winehouse song. And so he
Amy,
cues up.
what? You've got Amy Winehouse just like in your
No,
pocket?
nope, nope, not at, I have it memorized. I don't have it performance ready, but in my drunk mind, I was like, yeah, I do. So I go
Sorry,
up.
which Amy? Was it which
Well,
Amy?
I
Was it
wanted to do,
Rhea?
no, wait, I wanted to do, I'm no good, because that is the one
Uh-huh.
that at karaoke's and amongst friends, I do an okay job with I'm no good. The registers where I need it to be, the
Sure.
words are what I need.
Yeah.
He turns out the singer showed up, so then I'm like, "Oh, thank God I'm off the hook." But then he says, because he's also drinking, and he gets after this singer, blows everyone's fucking mind, by the way, an amazing vocalist. He gets up and he's like, "But I did promise another young woman that she could sing as well." And I was like, "No, cut, no." And he's like, "No, come on up, Bonnie, you've got it in you." And so I went up and he was like, and I start just like riffing with the crowd and doing crowd work while he's getting shit ready. And it's a packed house. And he's like, he keeps on being like, "Bonnie, what song was it? What song was it?" And I was like, I'm no good. Amy Winehouse, I'm no good. Amy Winehouse. And he couldn't get it. And I'm still riffing. And finally, I just hear Rehab start to play. And I was like, that was not, I can't do that one. That's my worst one. That's like the worst song ever for me to sing. And I ended up doing a harrowing improvised parody of Rehab about loving to drink. And it was, and I'm dancing around because I was drunk as shit. So I was like dancing around the room too and like giving the mic to people, having a blast.
Oh, oh
It
God.
was, and then I got done. And as people were leaving, because there's like one more thing that he wanted us to all do, like a dance together, something like that. But I only knew that how bad I did when I was walking back to my seat, and nobody was like, "Great job." Nobody gave me like a whoo. Everybody just like I straightforward as I was walking past. So I just grabbed my things and I ran to the tube station and immediately left, like didn't say goodbye to the guy, said nothing. It was
You were like, no,
horrific.
no, no. When I said, I'm no good, I meant
I
like
was
that. I was not a song suggestion. I was telling you I'm not good. Like, I'm not
not
good.
good.
Please
Not
do
good.
not
That's
put me on the
really clever.
stage.
That's
Why are
really
we having
clever.
this miscommunication? Like, I gave you what I told you I was going to give. I said I am not good. I'm no good. Like,
I'm no good.
I did say this.
I can only hope that the next morning he looked at the notes that he had written after like waking up hungover and been like, wait, maybe she was trying to tell me something.
Maybe she was trying to tell me, oh, wait, I realized I'm not actually. Wait, no,
Good. I'm
whoops.
not. It
Whoops.
was so bad. But how
I
that
signed
felt. So
up
I
for the
went back.
geology conference and then realized, oops, I forgot I'm not a geologist. Whoa.
Oh my God, it was so bad. But so like that
Whoopsie.
time, that bombing, because I was drunk for it, I like, and it felt like a fever dream because it was. I went back to my Airbnb that I was sharing with my friend Connor, and he was like, "How did it go?" And I was like, and he was like, was it Lana Del Rey on SNL in 2014?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, it was actually." And then I felt closer to Lana, so that one felt good. The other time that I bombed, I mean, it's always just like running out of the room. I bombed. I've truly bombed, thankfully, like not that many times, but I think it's because I'm like such a perfectionist, and everything that I write is like so meticulously written that I don't know if I can even say that. I think I just haven't bombed because I'm not that good. Because in order to be very good, you have to bomb. Like I think a lot,
I agree. I mean, I
or
agree.
I might just be insane, and maybe I have bombed, and like I'm a
I just didn't
narcissistic
know it.
enough, and like I have like a god complex. So I'm like they loved me, and everybody's just crickets. I'm coming off like wow,
You've got some weird, like, inner ear condition where boos sound like tears.
sound like yeah.
They're saying,
Oh my god.
boo, Lonnie. Boo, Lonnie.
That's what it was. Oh, they just had my name wrong.
Yeah.
No, I do think I think because I have like an optional god complex that I employ when it's helpful, when I bomb, I've just decided to tell myself I was funny. It just wasn't the right energy.
I
And I
100% understand having a God complex. My last collection of poetry was called While I Wait to Be a God Again. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's fucking perfect.
Yeah.
You get it. You're on the same. You understand.
Is there a difference in being funny for social media and being funny in person? And does the awareness that you could end up on social media stymie what you might say in person, or does it challenge you to write smarter jokes?
Don, to answer this question, I'm still thinking about the fact that I just said I don't bomb very often, and that could come up as a soundbite on social media, and people could be like, "What?" It does
Yeah.
stymie. But you knowing that it's going to go on social media changes what for sure. Although I have found being edgy not just for the sake of being edgy, but being edgy as like a meaningful commentary or what I would consider a meaningful commentary on social media. Social media is the one place where even if a ton of people hate you for what you just did or like what you just said, that boosts your viewership because people will comment crazy shit. Not that I've done anything that I think I've done a couple things that people took as I did a couple things that were like tongue in cheek that people took as being not tongue in cheek and got very angry about in the comments. And then it just boosted and it spreads like wildfire whenever people comment angry things or when people comment at all. So it does change kind of what you do, but and social media is a lot more critical. Whereas in person, the worst thing that is going to happen is somebody's not going to laugh. But on social media, people can write very mean things and tell you how terrible you are at what you do. So it's, I don't know. Yeah, it changes what you say on social media. Then, like, there are stand up clips that I have that were great in the moment and felt really good in the moment. And I got many compliments on in the moment that I wouldn't post on social media because it's just not as funny as the stuff that I could post on social media.
Or it needs
Or
the context of, it's
correct, or it
15
needs the
minutes
context.
and you need the 15 minutes set up to understand this 20 seconds of joke. And
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And it's and there's no way to put it on there so
yeah.
succinctly. So the landscape is and what's funny on social media is way different than what's funny in real life, I think. There's some overlap, obviously. It's a Venn diagram, but there's a lot of circle outside of the intersection. So, yeah, and it does. It changes what you're willing to because there's also like a digital footprint and it is because we're in 2023 and as comedians we have to be responsible about what we say and we can't complain whenever people, we can complain, but nobody cares. Whenever people don't like what we say, then you have to be careful about what you're putting in like a digital record. If it's something that you think people aren't going to get the context of, or if it's something that you think people are going to take the wrong way or take and run with in a direction you didn't intend them to, or use as some kind of reasoning to be hateful towards a group of people that wouldn't happen in person. Yeah, you have to be, you have a different set of rules for the internet, I think. That's a weird way to put that. I don't like that wording very well. There's no different set of rules, but the internet is
It's a different audience. I mean,
it's a different
social media is a
audience.
very strange thing because you're going from here's a recipe, here's a cute dog, here's a dead child suffering in a country that you're never going to be
Oh
in.
my god, it's fucking
Here
terrible.
is a hot take about the local eatery somewhere. I feel so old saying the local eatery. Here's a
I loved
comedian
it.
trying to be funny when you're just still processing the video of the horrible war that you just saw. And then, oh, here's this comedian thinking she's funny. And it's like everybody's coming to you. Like when I buy a ticket to a comedy show, as I'm going to the comedy show, I am mentally preparing to be in the audience of a comedy show. And
Yes.
as I am on social media, I am in 78 different audiences all at the same time.
Yeah.
That For You page, that endless scroll, that addiction is a problem because it's so difficult to figure out like what do you even say? Like if you think about it too much, you would just never post anything ever.
That's exactly right. And like I have to work through that. I've had to work through that, and I have the privilege of being in a situation where the horrible things that are happening all over the place aren't happening directly to me, and I have the privilege of being able to sit and think, "Can I keep posting on the internet whenever things like this are happening? And, like, what is that even appropriate?" Because I do I try to pay attention to everything that I can, and I try to be but I get, I get stuck on it. I get in my head. I'll cry for 4 hours and be like, I need to, like, delete everything on the internet forever. So it is
Can
very
we?
different
Can
'cause
we
being
just delete? Can we just delete the internet?
can we just
Can
can
we
we
just
just
unplug
delete
it?
it, please? Unplug it and plug it back in, just restart it all. Imagine how different it could be. But it's true, and to be fair, some people going to comedy shows don't do the mental preparation to be in a comedy
Well,
show,
that's
and it
true.
shows a lot, And there are some people at comedy shows who you're like, why would you spend money on this if you're gonna sit there and be like, I don't can I pay you to leave? Like, that is,
Okay, but I feel the same thing happens on social media. Like you'll have people like
It's true.
I'll have people follow me and leave comments on like, "What is this gay shit?" I'm like, "You've been following me for 5 months. I have seen your comments on my like videos, my photos. Like, oh, I love your dog. Oh, da, 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 da." Did you like the
You
gayness
never
is very
realized?
apparent. What are we doing here? Like, why are you following somebody
So
that you're
what
like?
is this gay
I don't
shit?
understand. I'm so
So fucking
confused.
stupid. But yeah,
Okay,
it's true because people will just like, yeah, people don't prepare themselves.
I have to ask you because this is how I found you. The
Please.
product packaging class of 2023.
Wow, yeah, my precious pupils.
When is the movie coming out? Is there a cinematic universe? What happened to Dylan? Is there a menage a trois? Is there where is all of this happening? Is that what and when and how and why? Do you
Thank you.
actually think this deeply about product packages, or was it just a funny video that took off and now this is your life?
It was I appreciate all these questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously product packaging is kind of my passion and has been for many years.
I work in
No, I
distribution
don't
for Target.
I actually design all the products that I talk
I
about.
actually design all the packages.
Those meetings are actually how I came up with the design for
Yeah,
all these packages.
these are literally
No,
verbatim.
can you fucking imagine? I mean, I did work in I, like, come from an engineering background or whatever, so I did do, like, a
Of
bunch of
course you do.
product design shit in college, but no, I was standing in a kitchen in very casually in Paris and, was cooking
I'm
for my friend.
sorry, what? I was standing in my kitchen in Paris.
I just had to drop that. It wasn't mine, it's my friend's kitchen, but I was just like, I can't do stand-up whenever I'm in Paris. When I'm often in Paris, I can't do stand-up because well, I could, and I'm going to next time, but anyway, I was just trying to think of video ideas, and I was trying to write stand-up actually, and I was trying to write stand-up about how how potatoes are, like, the grossest vegetable and the dirtiest one, and they get put in, like, the sexy little fishnets, and and I was like, "Oh, I was trying to figure out how to make my stand-up into reels instead, and I just came up with that, and then it took off, and all these people commented, like, all these other products to do, and I enjoy riffing and, like, coming up with shit from people telling me. But what's funny is that people would give me all these
Sorry,
ideas.
did we just discover your kink? Is this you enjoy being told what to do? Is that
Yeah, can that be the title?
ti- ti-
What was the what's tight what was the other innuendo? What does tight mean?
Oh
Something about being
God.
like a little slut, I don't know.
Editing this episode is gonna be a treat.
Oh my god, you're gonna get so many little tidbits just for you. But you have to edit out where I said that I'm gonna that's gonna haunt me forever where I said that I don't bomb often. I need people to
No, no,
I
no. So
bomb
what I'm gonna
all the
do is I'm
time.
gonna leave that in there, but I'm gonna edit in. I'm gonna go through all of the stand up I can find of you online, and I'm gonna find your worst joke. I'm
Can
gonna
you
find your
imagine?
worst
It just
joke.
I never bomb,
It's
and
very
then it
much gonna be. So do you ever watch Selling Sunset?
I've seen tidbits.
Okay, so what Selling Sunset producers have started to do. Oh, or Love is
Oh,
Blind.
Where people will say shit and then they'll edit in like
And then they
the
edit in the
riffing.
actual scene, and it's like, okay, well, this person said this and this person said that. Here's what actually happened. And it's going to be Bonnie Klopfer says she's never bombed. Well, here's her singing Lady
Stop.
Marmaduke.
I would lose my fucking mind if that video was online. You can keep where I said I never bombed. You can't keep where I very seriously with a straight face said I don't bomb very often because that's so cunty. What was I getting? What was I on
That is
though?
actually going to be on the reel. That's going to be actually on the promo video on TikTok. That's how I'm going to end. I've never bombed. Dawn, thank you so much for that question. I've actually never bombed. I am a comedy savant. Thank you so much.
If you
Bonnie
kept that,
Klopfer.
that's perfect because that's funny. It's the
Thank
genuine
you.
answer. It's the genuinely answering. I don't bomb that much. Shut up, dumb bitch. Yes, you do.
What's the
But
worst product package?
the worst product package. Well, scissors, and that's why I can never do it because people have asked for scissors for so long, and so this is what I was getting to. Basically, people started commenting and telling me I was copying some other creator from like 2020. I don't know what the guy.
Because
I
there's
wish I
only
could
one
find him.
person that's ever made that joke ever in the whole
Right.
history of ever.
There's only one person who's ever observed the idiocy of some packaging or like the silliness. But I think that people were commenting too, like some of the ideas that they were commenting for me to do might have been from this guy's video that I had literally never seen in my entire life.
Okay.
And so then I think I did end up covering some of the same things that he did. I'd never seen his video. I had no idea who this was. And I still haven't watched them because I didn't want to watch them for the sake of like maintaining the fact that I've never watched them. I couldn't actually watch them
No, I do
after
the same
that.
thing. Like when I'm writing a new book, I can't read in that genre because I'm terrified that I'm
Yes.
going to actually accidentally crib.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I never actually watched this, but I did know because somebody had put specifically in a comment, so many people wanted me to do scissors, which is the dumbest packaging. But so many people had commented that Ellen DeGeneres very specifically had commented on scissor packaging during stand
Oh,
up in
that's
like the early
true. And also
2000s.
pickles and the pickle
I
jar.
don't know. Did she talk about the pickles? I
Yeah.
didn't. Fuck. Well,
Yeah,
I
and then
did
she's
pickles
like, "Oh,
now.
pickle juice in your eye." And I remember because my dad used to really love that set. It was an hour on HBO, and then she was a lesbian, and he's like, "Well, that's not funny anymore." So
Oh my
Ellen's not
god.
funny. Yeah, we used to love Ellen in our house. Sorry, mom, if you're
And,
listening,
and
it's true.
until she was gay. Until you
Yeah.
found out she was.
Well, all of
Wow. That's
America loved Ellen, and then she came out, and then nobody in America loved Ellen anymore. Or Laura
I guess
Dern.
I must have been too young for
Shut
when all this was
up.
happening.
Listen here.
Um,
Boobles
I'm just
McGee.
I'm
I'm
just
gonna need you
I'm
to quit telling me how young and baby girl you are.
how young and perky I am. What's the other words I say? I say young, perky, supple, fertile.
Buxom.
How
How
young
about
and fertile.
buxom? I don't get to.
Buxom. Oh,
I feel like I don't hear buxom anymore.
buxom's a wonderful word.
Buxom is such a throwback. I feel like people were like buxom Bettys. Like, oh,
That
she's
is
such a
like a
Betty.
1950s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, Don, to be fair, you did tell me how you were like obsessed with World War II poetry or war
You
poetry,
did.
and then the beatniks as well.
Yeah.
And now you're using the word buxom.
Yeah.
So you're
I am actually
you're like actively trying to be
74
90
years
years
old.
old. Yeah, you're trying to be
This
much older than you
cardigan
are.
is actually I come by this cardigan honestly.
I love it, but you do wear it well though without the shirt under.
Thank you. I just get
What
so
was the
hot with the
on?
shirt on underneath it. It's
I
just
can
so hot.
appreciate that. That's the next title of it. This is gonna have 7 titles. You just have to publish it 7 times with
I'm
different
so
titles.
tight and hot.
I'm so
With that.
tight and hot. You know I'm no good. Fuck, what was the other
Oh.
and you're gonna have to text me whenever you find the other innuendo in here that we forgot. Whatever it was, like, I don't even know what it was. It was
Yeah,
spicier
this is
than
going to
tight, I
receive
think.
no editing except for I will put in your bomb. I will insert your bomb somewhere
I don't think that you can
surreptitiously.
find my bomb actually, you probably could. Fuck, you probably could find my bomb somewhere. You
I'll
could
just
find me bombing somewhere for
No,
sure.
I'll just here's what I'll do is I'll take a video. I'll screen grab a video of your stand-up set and I will just isolate the laugh track and remove it. So it sounds
So it
like you
just sounds
bombed.
like silence. That's so funny.
It'll just be a
Thank
montage of all of your stand-up and then just, like, silence after every joke.
Complete silence after everything. Oh my god, I fucking love that. Actually, if you did that, I would post that and be like, "Why am I
I'm
bombing
going
someone?"
to. I've It's
Oh
Bonnie
my
Klopfer.
god.
I've never bombed. Oh, yeah? That's oh,
Bomb.
yeah? Bonnie Klopfer,
Oh
thank
my
you so much
god.
for being here on Head on Fire.
Thank
If
you so
people
much
would
for having me.
if people would like to see your tight 5, where could they do that on the internet or anywhere else?
Oh, on the internet, you can see me do all my tight little things on Instagram at booby_clapper, BOOBIE_KLAPPER. On TikTok, it's same thing, sans underscore, so just booby clapper. And I'm about to launch my YouTube and Facebook pages for anybody who wants to do those. It's gonna be a similar naming convention, booby clapper with or without an underscore. And then in real life, I'm usually based in LA, so you can catch me doing stand up at the Comedy Store and other various locations. And you can knock on wood and cross all your fingers for, sorry, not the Comedy Store, that was the Comedy Chateau. You can cross your fingers though, knock on wood for Comedy Store and Laugh Factory. And then I will be bouncing around the East Coast and Europe for the next
And I
couple
feel
months.
like with the way things go, you'll be making your MCU debut in, like, 18 months or so? Like, are you
Oh,
already
yeah.
in talks for the MCU?
Yeah, I actually run it.
All right.
Fucking
Thank you so
amazing.
much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. It has been a pleasure.
And that is going to do it here for this episode of Head on Fire. My thanks to my guest, Bonnie Klopfer. Before I get to the whole sign-off thing, I do want to let you know that the last episode of the year, because I always take a little bit of a break in January, the last episode of this year is going to be a little different than I've done in the past. I thought it would be fun to do a Q&A with you guys. My audience is kind of blown up like crazy this year, and even though my inbox is kind of overflown, I haven't really been very good about responding to people as much. So this is a great way. If you have any burning questions for me, if you have any questions about writing, if you have any questions about, I don't know, my thoughts on what my favorite movie was this year or something like that, about past guest, maybe I could pass along the question to a guest and get their answer for you. Whatever it is that you would like to ask, I will answer it on the next episode. Plus, I will have a very special returning guest, Meg Elison, author of all sorts of things like Number One Fan and the Road to Nowhere trilogy, is going to come back and help me count down the highs and lows of 2023. So if you have any questions for me or you have any questions for Meg, email those to contact@headonfirepod.com. Once again, that's contact@headonfirepod.com. That email is going to be in the notes. If you like the show and you want to support it, there are a number of ways to help. Consider sharing it with your friends on social media. You can also like or rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're there, consider leaving a review. Reviews help recommend the show to other listeners like you. If you hate ads at the beginning and end of each episode, consider joining my Patreon on a monthly basis. Patrons receive additional audio and video content, as well as archived episodes, a private Discord server, as well as fun little goodies along the way. Sign up at patreon.com/headonfirepod. You can also connect with me on social media. I am at headonfirepod everywhere. Thanks so much for tuning in and downloading. Thank you so much for growing with me this year. This has been amazing. I'm going to go, but before I do, please remember to never stop seeking illumination like a man with his head on fire seeks water. Be well.